Greetings, web designers. So today we are going to talk about adding libraries into our JavaScript code. And a library is basically a collection of functions and variables and code instructions that somebody else has written that you can then make use of. That's basically what it boils down to. And just the same way in which we've been adding or referencing pages from other code in our work so far, a library is the same thing. Just in the same way that we've been importing or linking pages of code that we have written into our projects, a library is the same thing. So when we have been using the @import CSS command, for example, we've been using that to import a page of CSS that we wrote into our project and to link it to our HTML. And if we're going to use a JavaScript library, we're going to do just that, but instead of it being a page that we wrote ourselves, it'll be a page that somebody else wrote, or potentially even it can be something that we wrote ourselves. So you could make your own library. If you made some functions that you found yourself reusing often enough, you could potentially make a library as well, and then use that as a shorthand for calling and implementing those functions very quickly. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's what a library is. It is a collection of functions on one document or more that you add to your project, you import it, link it to your project, and then you can use those functions according to your needs. So it's a level of abstraction at some point. You're separating useful things by category, maybe. So library is usually on a theme, a sound library, a 3D rendering library, that kind of stuff. And it contains all sorts of useful things inside of it that you might want to use. So let's take a look on how to do that and why and what we might be doing with such a thing. I love the library called P5JS. It is a visual kind of like graphics, data viz, does sound, like it's a creative kind of applications library. You can make web pages with it as well, although it's not really designed for that. It's designed for creative applications, but it's really just fun and awesome, and there's a really great professor from ITP, Daniel Schiffman, who has a video series on YouTube that is just like stellar video series making, and you can watch it and learn everything you want to learn about P5JS. So that is also really convenient for us because we can integrate that class into our class, if we will, like a library of videos, so to speak. Yeah, so we're going to look at it and use it in our code.
Okay, so let's look at P5JS. So here we are. I've just searched for P5JS. We can click on the home page, and it's a glorious website, and it has all sorts of cool stuff happening in the background, which is built with P5JS. And so it's a JavaScript library, you can see here, for creative coding, and we will make our first sketch with it. So one of the really great things about P5JS is if you click right here, you can, like the try it editors that we've been using to do HTML and CSS so far, we can run little P5JS sketches in the browser as well. So if I hit run, it has made me this background square. First of all, let's look at adding P5.js to our website. And then we will return to this page and do further development in here. Okay, let's go back. Okay, so to get started, we can click on this handy Get Started link, and we can make our first sketch. I would like to use P5.js on our desktop just for learning how to add a library. So let's look at this. And it says here we can download the P5.js complete library, and then we can use this script source tag, which is just like our link rel tag that we've been using for CSS, but in this case it is script source. So the same structure, but happening in the script tag. But even easier than having the library come from our own server, we can just use this right here. So if we wanted to, I'll make a new web page. Let's save it. So I'm going to go back to my class site. I'm going to make a new folder. I'll call it P5.js library example. And this will be my index.html. Okay, so I wrote my HTML, open and close tag. We have our head here, as always, the body, there we are. And so in here we can call the script. So we can call the script in the script, we can call the script in the head tag. I wonder why it's not color coded. Let's see. It looks okay. I think it should just work. Okay, so let's look at this basic sketch that they have up here. So we can copy this, and let's go back to Atom. So here I'm calling the hosted library, just like we would in CSS. And now, rather than make an external style sheet, I will just make this internal one. And we could say why is everything grayed out? Okay, now it's normal colored. Weird. Okay. Okay, so I've copied and pasted this example code that P5.js gives us. And I think that this library is really great for learning if and else statements and doing interactivity. So I'm excited to use it for that. Okay, so here we have our function, our setup function. And you can see you're pretty used to seeing this word function and then followed by a function. So in this case, we are not describing, how can we say, setup is a function that comes with P5.js library, and it has many special things that it does. Or in this case, it's going to run once, and it kind of is the basis of what we build on to make our our scripts. So there's two core elements in the P5JS sketch. So these are called sketches. And it's two functions, one that runs once and the other one that runs over and over and over again, infinitely running. And this one is called draw. So you'll always see these two functions together in the P5JS sketch, setup and draw. So we have our setup function, and it is going to do something called create canvas, which is going to give us a canvas that's 400 pixels wide by 400 pixels across. And then this draw function has a whole bunch of really cool things in it. Here it says if mouse is pressed, fill the thing right under it, which is going to be this ellipse, with 0, so that's black. Otherwise, fill it with white. So that's our if-else structure. And then here we have the thing that is under the fill, which is an ellipse. And the ellipse is drawn at the coordinates of mouse X and mouse Y. So wherever the mouse happens to be on the canvas, that's where it will draw the ellipse, and the size is 80 by 80. So let's see in practice what this actually means. Here it is. We have our 400 by 400 canvas, and it draws a circle. I'm not pressing my mouse, so it's just drawing a circle. And if I press it, it makes a black one. Amazing. Instant interactivity. Incredible. Just like, how quickly did we do that? It just blows my mind. Okay, so let's see what happens if I just want to make this bigger, so I'm going to make this be 10,000 by 10,000 pixels, and let's rerun it. So I'm going to reload, and now my canvas should be much bigger. Amazing. Now, what can we do next with this, this circle canvas? Just for the sake of experimenting with color, etc. So we have this mouse X, mouse Y variables that come baked into P5JS for us. So this is an example of why we would use a library. We would use it to have something like this that we don't have to build from scratch, which is really great. So what if I use this mouse X, for example, to do my fills? So it's going to be dynamic RGB that changes based on mouse X and mouse Y. And then here, maybe I'll have it reversed. Just to see as an example. So I'm reloading, and you can see a different behavior. In the coloring of our circles. Cool. Very, very cool. So something important to remember when looking at and using libraries from other libraries that other people have written is then how do you practically. A really important aspect of dealing with libraries is just getting your way around documentation, because a library is a collection of functions that someone has written on your behalf, but they are kind of closed, right? We don't know what they all do, how to access them, etc., etc. And this is very similar to the way we learned HTML and CSS too, we had to go to W3 schools and go through all the steps of learning the documentation on that, right? So same thing for libraries. They'll all have their own page, and they should have a get started, something like a get started page. Here we are, and then they should have references. So this is where you can learn kind of similar things. So like HTML and CSS, P5JS has colors and data. We can access the DLM. We can use images, but it also has some things, there's typography, but it also has some things that HTML and CSS don't have, like lights and camera. And then going through examples to learn what everything means. So this is very similar from our world of W3 schools that we've been living in. But now for the first time we're going to expand beyond that world and learn like a whole new library. And there's many of them out there. So here is P5JS, which I will be using, but we also have like paper.js is a really nice one. This too has its reference, so similar to p5.js. There is also like d3.js, which is really good for data visualization. Beautiful library. And then there is Generatives Gestaltung, which I absolutely adore. And it also has a JS library. So there's many of these beautiful, absolutely beautiful libraries that can be used. And they'll all have the same kind of protocol and the same order in which you'll go through the things that you do with them, and that is going to be downloading the code, linking to it, and then implementing examples. Now there's benefits and disadvantages to hosting the code yourself. The benefit is that you could remove all the parts you're not using. You know that it's going to work the same way every time when you are using the library that you're hosting yourself. Whereas if you are referencing a library somewhere else on the internet, it could go down. If the server hosting that library goes down, it could, something might break, like if they change the document. If the owners change some information in the document that your code references, the links might break and your code may not run. However, it is nice to use a library that's hosted somewhere else because it's always kept up to date and you don't have to worry about hosting it on your server. As you work through making more and more complicated examples, you will know which option is best for you.